Hello, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Live in Conversation. How you all doing? My name is Daphnée Antoine.
And I am Daphnée Camilien. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. So we are on a special time this evening, but that's okay. Attorney Camillia and I are here every Wednesday to come live to share resources and information for families to thrive, as well as current immigration news for anyone that might need it. So if you or somebody is currently in need of knowing what's happening with respect to immigration, Tony Chameleon is here to share that. But tonight is a special segment. So we will be speaking about renters' rights. So our topic for this evening is renters' right and what you should know, especially when it comes to signing a lease. And so that's what Attorney Camila and I will discuss this evening. So come on and share the live, bring your question, comments. Let us know what question do you have. But as always, Attorney Camila will go ahead and share a disclosure this evening.
Sure. I am an attorney, and anything say this evening does not enter myself and you into any type of attorney client relationship. Daphne Renee is a financial entrepreneur. Anything she says does not enter you and her into any type of fiduciary duty. The information that we are sharing tonight is for information and entertainment purposes only. If you have a question, please seek out legal advice or any type of appropriate advice pertaining to anything we're talking about. And back to you, Renee. Back to you.
All right. All right, welcome back again, everyone. This is Live in Conversation. My name is Daphnée Antoine, and then this is Daphnée Camilien. And then so let's get into it. Attorney Camilien, are we doing immigration segment as well, or just straight to renters, right?
Just straight to renters' rights.
All right. So let me go ahead and highlight you so you can share with the people what's important when being a renter.
Sure. And this stems from just my experience working with immigrants, new to the U.S., new to this information, because obviously wherever you're from, renting an apartment, house, anything of that nature, there are different rules and regulations. But this is general information that could be beneficial to our immigrants in the United States. But in addition to that, anybody who young or old who has been a renter or who will be a renter, and just in general, good information to pass along. So I have 5 things to remember when you're signing a lease. The very first thing that I will tell people to remember is that a lease is a contract, right? Uh, people might think, well, duh, or of course I know a lease is a contract. But I think when we think about a lease being a contract, if you think about it as a contract, if I said, oh, here, come sign this contract, um, people are more likely to read the contract, be more likely to be on high alert before signing a contract. So if you just view this lease, it is it's a contract to live somewhere for an exchange of money each month, or week or whatever you sign, uh, or year. But you just have to remember it is a contract, right? So just approach it as a contract, which means what are the consequences if there's a breach? If you don't follow the contract, you can be sued. Or if your landlord doesn't follow the contract, the landlord could be sued by you if you're a tenant. So that's just something to think about. Those are the consequences if breached. So remember, a lease is a contract. Uh, when another thing to focus on that's really really important is when you get a lease, make sure you read your lease. Um, circle, highlight the things that you have questions. You can always ask the person who gave you the lease questions about it. You can also seek legal counsel about it when you have a contract. But you yourself should be reading your lease. And one of the things you should be paying attention to is, when does your lease end, right? When does it start and when does it end? Is it a 1 year lease, a 6 month lease, month to month lease, meaning that it's only month to month? Is it a 2 year lease? Some leases, and that's why it's really important to read it. Some leases have what they call automatic renewal, right? So the lease may be for a year, right? From January 1st, let's say it's January 1st, 2023 to, December 31st, uh, 2023. But it'll say something like, if you don't provide, a move out notice, 60 days before the end of the lease, it will automatically renew for another year. So you have to make sure you read those things and you understand what they are, because you want to know, when does my lease end. So that's really important for your future and your plans as well. So knowing the term of the lease is important. It's usually, every contract is different, but a lot of times they're usually found at the top, right? It'll say very clearly, the lease begins on this date and the lease ends on this date. Um, let's see. Can I leave my lease early? You should know that. Okay, what if something happens and you need to break your lease for, an emergency or something, just life happens, right? Can you leave your lease, right? Can you end your lease early? It is a contract. Is there a way out of the contract? Most of the time, no. But there are leases, and I've seen them, where there's a clause that says, if the lease is for 1 year and you need to leave the lease early, they will charge you 1 month's rent, 2 months' rent, and then they'll let you out of the lease. So it's not impossible, but make sure you pay attention to that and know that ahead of time. And that can also have an effect on your decision. If you need to leave the lease, you understand that you're still responsible for paying each month that the apartment is vacant. So if your rent is $1,000, you move in, you've been there for 3 months, you break the lease, you're still responsible until the lease is over for each month. And there are exceptions to that, but understand you signed a contract, right? And that you said you'd be there for a year. So that's important to pay attention to. Let me see. If you need to contact your landlord about an issue, this is something called notice. This is something that a lot of people, I think, don't pay attention to or are aware of. The notice section of the lease, right? A lot of leases, I'd say most leases, if they're pretty standard, they weren't made up, they have what you call a notice section, right? And the notice section, and it literally says notice, right, on the lease. And then it would say, if you need to contact the landlord about an issue, please, write them a letter at this address, send them an email at this address, or send the agent, the person who's responsible for the apartment. They'll name the person, they'll give you email or address, any of those things, right? It's really, really important, because whoever is listed on your lease, right, may not be the person you're dealing with. And so when you have an issue with your apartment, if you let's say you always talk to Johnny, right? And Johnny's the person who maybe collects the money. And so you have a problem, like a big problem. You have, your ceiling is cracked, right? And there's water coming through your ceiling, and you're contacting Johnny asking him to fix it. And then you want to complain, and you realize, that your items are getting damaged, and you want to sue Johnny, right? I mean, you want to sue, and then you keep contacting him, and then you decide to sue, and then the owner of the property will say, I never knew. And then you'll be like, but I contacted Johnny. But they'll pull out the lease and say, the lease says contact Susie McDonald if there is an issue with the apartment. So you need to pay really close attention to who you're actually supposed to contact, because you signed that lease. When you sign a lease, you're saying that you read everything in that lease, you understand everything in that lease, and you agree to everything in that lease. So it's really important that you understand notice, right? So look, if it doesn't have a notice section, just kind of look through and see. And if who am I supposed to send information to? If you move out, who are you supposed to tell you're moving out? If you're trying to get your security deposit back, who are you supposed to write to get your security deposit? Most of the time, it's one particular person, and it's you already know the person. But there are times when it's not. So it's really important to pay attention, especially if you have any problems or issues with your apartment and you're trying to get them resolved. Make sure you're talking to the correct person and make sure you're filing the proper notice that they're asking. If they tell you that if there's a problem, you have to write them a letter, make sure you're writing it to the correct person. You can't, if they tell you to mail it to a certain address, but you deal with the maintenance man and who lives on the first floor, you cannot write the letter to the maintenance man. You have to follow whatever the lease says. And that's really, really important, especially if you ever have to sue your landlord. And it's unfortunate, but hopefully no one never has to do it. But people do sue their landlords, and also landlords evict tenants, and landlords do sue their tenants as well, unfortunately. And so one of my last points, point number 5, is pay attention, because I've actually seen this. Pay attention if there's a clause in your lease about rodents or insects and who is responsible for exterminators, paying for rodents and insects, any of that, like paying for the cleanup of that, how many times they'll come out, all of it, right? So I had a situation where I had a case where someone called me because they had signed a lease. They had been there. It was like a short amount of time, maybe 2 months, 3 months, and they started seeing roaches in their apartment all over the place. And they wanted the landlord to come and hire an exterminator and clean it. But they had a clause in their lease, right, that said that they had, like, I think it was 30 days from the day they moved in to report any type of insects within the apartment. Or if there was no report of the insects, anything after that first month of them living there, they would turn around and they would be responsible. The tenant would be responsible for any type of extermination for insects. Now, every state is different, so there's always exceptions. Bed bugs is usually a big exception, but that's state by state. So, but this person had signed this and showed me the lease. I found the clause. It's not typical, but it's there. And I was like, "Did you know about this?" She said, "Yes." So she signed it. She said that. So she, was after the 30 days. So she's responsible for exterminating. She wanted to stay in the place. She had just moved in there. She had to take care of the issue. So that's something. Now, if you see that in the lease, that's up to you, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to pay extra attention. I don't care. I'm just going to move here anyway. Or you can say, try to negotiate with the landlord. Or it's a gamble. That might be the best place that you can find for your fee and where location and everything else. And so you said, I'm just going to go with it. And that may be what the case is. Or you may decide not to move in that place because you may say, why is this clause in there? And then, things of that nature. So that's really, really important and 5 things you should focus on. One bonus that I would like to add to is one thing I think I would just tell people is wherever you live, try to get to know your neighbors. Oftentimes when I talk to people and they have an issue with a landlord and they live in a building, and I'll ask them, do your neighbors have any of these same issues? Or what's going on with your neighbors? Or is the landlord like doing this to everybody? Or what's going on? They don't know any of their neighbors, right? It's really important, especially if there's any type of huge issue going on in the building. If there's bed bugs on one floor, is that traveling down? If there's a rodent problem, is one person having an issue on one floor and, it's infecting the whole building? Or is the landlord, selling the building and you don't even know? It's just really important to at least find one neighbor, someone that you hi and bye, be best friends with them, but be able to at least chat if there's any issues going on. Because oftentimes they could be your ally. And if they're there before you, they may be able to give you some insight as to what's going on in the building if you do have any issues in the future. So back to you, Daphnée. You're on mute. Oh, you're on mute.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Chameleon, for always showing up and sharing your knowledge with us. These are obviously great information. Welcome again to those of you who are live with us. I know this is not our regular time, but we had to come live this evening at this time for a special reason. So that being said, we are usually live on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And then so if you join this conversation later this evening, so Tony Chameleon was sharing information with regards to renters' right and how it's important for those of us who rent to pay attention to the lease because it is a contract, as she mentioned. So at least is a contract. So I'm just gonna briefly go ahead and recap what's been said for those of you who are joining us now. So thank you. I see you all. We appreciate it. Thank you for the like. Thank you for the love. Please share this information. And if you have any question right now that you would like Attorney Chameleon to answer for you, feel free to type it in the comment so that she can answer those questions for you. So with that being said, a lease is a contract, so pay attention to it because you can potentially be sued if you violate it. And then also pay attention to when your lease expire. That's part of reading the lease before you sign it. It That's the term of the lease. Pay attention to know if your list will automatically renew, and that's what Attorney Chameleon share with us. And if you need to leave your list early, what are the requirements? What you need to do to leave it early? Whether that means to pay at least 1 or 2 months, depending on what the contract says. And then so basically, as renter, I know it's important that you protect yourself, and this basically you protect yourself, you protect your family, and you know your right. And then so part of knowing your right and part of knowing what to do is knowing the contract that you sign. So thank you again, Attorney Camila. I'm not sure if I left anything else for my summary. And you
Oh,
also mentioned about
go ahead.
rodent and insects
Yeah.
and how it's important to read that part of that list as well to know who's responsible for that. Anything
Yeah.
you like to add?
No, just get to know your neighbors. It's
Yes,
really
yes.
important.
Even though it's hard, yeah,
It is.
it is
I'm
hard
not
here.
saying best. I'm not saying best friends, but I think that
Mhm.
like having a hi bye. What's her name? Susie on the second floor. If you
Mhm.
just know the person's first name and they're on the second floor, you don't ever have to talk to them until
Yeah.
the roof caves in. And
Oh
you're
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
what's
we don't
going
want
on?
that.
And then you at least can knock on Susie's door and be like, because we're in the same boat. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then so with that being said, I know sometimes you have the list and then you actually follow everything the list says and you read it, but then we are dealing with humans and sometimes humans do not do what they say they will do,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be the landlord or the tenant. So it's important for both of us to hold our hand of the bargain. But with that being said, I do want to share a resource just in case maybe you're in a situation and that you are a renter, you are in a situation right now where you cannot maybe get through to your landlord, or you cannot come to a resolution. Maybe you are having an issue and you cannot get a resolution. There are different community organizations who can basically help you um, with it's a mediation. What Daphne, help me out. Mediation.
Mediation.
Yeah,
Mediation.
mediation. Yep. My bad. Forgive me for the accent.
Mm-hmm.
Mediation between you and your landlord. I know the Rogers Park Community Development Corporation. I know they used to have renters right workshops. And then also be connected to your community. Know what and what different organization and resources that are in your community, so that you can know where to get help, where to seek help. Your alderman office is typically a resource as well, and then especially if there's a major issue that you need to report with respect to the building where you are living at, that could be a resource. But then community organization are a great resource as well. And then so I just want to quickly share the Wajuspar Community Development Corporation and then another website that give you a list of different organizations in the Chicagoland area, depending on where you live, who can help you. Okay. Anything you want to add while I'm showing my screen, Attorney
Yeah,
Camille?
I think it's really important what you said. And I wanted to add leases that are contracts are governed by state law, right? So that means like the law in California is going to be different or could be different than the law in Illinois, and each state is very different. We are in Chicagoland area, and within Chicagoland, you have the Chicago has their own renters like ordinances, right? So their own rules that landlords and renters have to abide by. And then Cook County has their own rules, right? And then so that's Chicago, Cook County. Now Cook County is Chicago plus surrounding suburbs. Then you have specific suburbs. So let's say you live in the suburb, they have their own renters rules for the people who live in their suburb. So it's really important, like she said, to know what your neighborhood is and where your what's going on in your neighborhood, in your area, because they have their own rules. And a lot of times it's more protections for the tenant, to be honest. You may have more protections than you think. So it's really important to do to know what's going on in your community. Back to you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so this is the website for the Northside Community Development Corporation. So if you are in the Rogers Park area and you may need assistance to speak with someone with regards to your right as a tenant, you can always reach out to this community organization. It's at 1530 West Moss Avenue, and this is the website and phone number. Um, a great resource for you there. And also, depending on where you live, I'm going to share this website. Okay, give me 1 second, share screen. So it's rentassistance.org. So if you go to rentassistance.org, you'll be able to see different organization based on different neighborhood, and how, depending on where you live, I'll just put it in the, for some reason it's not coming up for me. Let's see. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay. So as you all can see, this is a list of different organization that can assist you with potential winter issues. So based on where you live, you can go ahead and reach out to any one of them. All right. So I'll put it in the comment, rentassistance.org.
And this is out of the Chicagoland area.
Yes,
So if you
exactly.
so if you're in California, just search out local. I would Google California rental assistance, New Jersey rental assistance, New York, doesn't matter, Colorado, and see what programs are out there.
Yes, ma'am. All right. And obviously with everything that's been going with COVID, and I know a lot of people maybe are facing difficulty right now with regards to being able to pay rent, being able to make a living, to be able to earn a living. And so there's also different programs that are helping tenants right now who are behind on the rent to maybe avoid any eviction issues. So again, research, do your research, reach out to your alderman or alderwoman find out what are some programs out there that can potentially help you if you are a renter and you're having difficulty right now keeping up with your rent payments. That's all I wanted to add, Attorney Camila. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, there are uh so two things. I would I would tell people to, um, just like you said, reach out to your alderman, reach out to your local community. There are resources out there, um, and just depending on where you're at too, there may even be federal resources. You don't know. There's a push to, a lot of states are pushing like to avoid homelessness, and they
Yes.
understand the effects of COVID-19 and people not being able to work, and also not um, being able to pay rent, and just problems on both sides as far as, because the landlord has to pay the mortgage, so there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff going on. So there's been resources that have been allocated. So it's really important to reach out to your local community, because oftentimes people don't, people who live in the suburbs, your suburb probably has resources and you don't even realize it. So
Yeah.
make sure that you do reach out. The other thing is, oftentimes people will tell you, seek an attorney out, when you're reviewing a contract, if you don't understand something. But realistically, you should. But realistically, I do understand that, people are trying to make it and they might not have $500 to hear, attorney, or $250, whatever attorney's charging them, 1,000. Here, go ahead and review this lease, So I tell people, if time is better. If you're interested in some place, uh get with your local clinics. There's tons of clinics out there. You just have to be patient, and there's tons of free clinics out there that will actually review your lease. Or if you have a specific question, that's probably easier. If you actually review your lease and you're like, I don't understand page 3 of my lease, well, that's a little bit different than giving somebody a 20-page document. But if you give them one page and say, I don't understand this, or what does this mean, that's much quicker, and you'll probably be able to find assistance that way. But be patient. Be patient, because oftentimes, these clinics are inundated with lots of people. But yeah, that's also a resource. Clinics, local law schools, reach out and see if they'd be willing to do it pro bono, which means free, so you don't have to pay. And then now you have a legal person looking at your actual contract to kind of give you hints as to what you should push back on, or what it means. And then you can make a decision. Yeah, it means this, but I need the place. I want the place. I know it has this provision, but I'm going to take it. So you can make an informed decision.
All right, all right. And last but not least, subscribe to your alderman or alderwoman weekly email newsletters, whatever mean of communication that they have. Stay connected. Most of them have Facebook pages nowadays. Um, but then I know, like, I subscribe to my alderwoman weekly newsletter, so that keep me informed of what's going on in the community. And I know Chicago right now is testing they are testing guaranteed income and how
Oh,
that
that's
impacts,
right.
yeah, and how that impacts families and communities. So I'm not sure if it's launched yet. I know they did a one round maybe like a month or two ago, where they had people apply for guaranteed income of $500 monthly, but then that was based on your income. However, I think they, if they did not launch it already, they will be launching a new application for anyone, regardless of their income, to apply for this guaranteed income fund. And then that's basically like they wanna test, they wanna understand if guaranteed income is a viable option to help families rise from poverty. And then so that's why you have to be connected to your local community, to the alderman, alderwoman office, so that you can know exactly what different programs are being launched, so that you can take advantage of them. That's it. We done?
That's been great information that you provided this evening, and that I think we both provided. So it's not just for the although like a lot of I'm immigration attorney, most of my stuff is geared towards immigrants. But I just feel like this is great information for anybody. This
Mhm.
is applicable to anybody, wherever you're at. Just pay
Yes.
attention to your contracts and ask questions. You have the right to ask questions. It's your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and reach out, and resources are out there no matter where you're at. So um, yeah, that's it. I think that's it for tonight.
Awesome. And then last but not least, if you are able to, and you do not want to wait in line or wait for a legal clinic to help you, Attorney Camillian is here. She can help you. You can reach out to her. Her website is chameleonlaw.org. Did I do that correctly? I'm sorry. It's
Dot com.
chameleons.com. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
not .org. She is a businesswoman. Okay, it does not for profit here. So it's .com. All right,
Mm-hmm.
all right. And her phone number is 847-410. Again, it's late for me. Remind me, Attorney
9022.
9022. 847
Mm-hmm.
410 9022. She will be generous and give you maybe a 10 minutes consultation. However, this is business. With that being said, this has been live in conversation. We hope this was helpful to you. Please share to somebody you know. Let people know about information that can help them thrive, because at the end of the day, this is why we do it. This is why we're here. So it doesn't matter how many people we're able to help, as long as we know of information that can be helpful to our community. We're going to be here and share it, and you can help us do that by sharing it as well. That's it for tonight. See you all next Wednesday. Bye for now. Have a good night.
Good night.